Around the world, ancient builders left behind structures that still refuse to fit comfortably into our modern understanding of the past. Vast stone complexes cut with striking precision, blocks weighing hundreds or even thousands of tons. Constructions that, according to everything we think we know about the tools and methods available at the time, should not have been possible. And yet, they stand often in surprisingly good condition centuries or millennia later. Decades of excavation and study have still left many fundamental questions unanswered. How some of these places were designed, how the stones were moved and set, and, in certain cases, why they were built at all. Here is a closer look at some of the most compelling examples in modern Lebanon. Baalbek holds one of the most impressive construction platforms ever assembled. The Temple of Jupiter rests on foundations that include the famous trilithon 3 stones, each weighing around 800 tons, with even larger blocks nearby, estimated at more than 1,000 tons. Moving a single block of that size today would require multiple heavy cranes and specialized equipment. Yet these stones were cut, transported, and placed with high accuracy thousands of years ago. The real puzzle is not only how they were lifted, but how they were shifted across the ground at all. Dragging them would have demanded huge coordinated labor and engineering methods that remain unclear. Karnak in Egypt is far more than a single temple. Expanded over many centuries, the complex contains some of the largest stone columns ever raised. The Great Hypostyle Hall alone holds 134 columns, several rising more than 20 meters. Each was assembled from massive blocks and finished with detailed carving. Transporting, stacking, and refining stones on this scale would have been an extraordinary logistical effort. Recreating the same work today without modern machinery would still be extremely difficult. The ancient Egyptians managed it nonetheless. High in the Peruvian Andes, Ollantaytambo displays some of the finest Incas. Large blocks were brought from quarries across a river and then up steep slopes. Some weigh more than 50 tons. They were moved without wheels, iron tools, or draft animals. Even more striking is the precision of the joints. The stones fit so tightly that no mortar was needed, and the walls have survived centuries of earthquakes. The combination of difficult transport, heavy weight, and exact fitting makes the site one of the most puzzling achievements in the Andes. At Teotihuacan in central Mexico, the Pyramid of the Moon stands at the end of the Avenue of the Dead, built in successive stages. It contains millions of tons of stone and earth. While it is not as tall as the Great Pyramid of Giza, the volume of material and the organization required are still impressive. Very little is known about the people who directed the work or the exact methods they used. On the west bank of the Nile, the Colossi of Memnon have watched over the plain for more than 3,000 years. Each figure is about 18 meters high and weighs an estimated 700 tons. Carved from single blocks of quartz. The stone came from quarries near modern Cairo, more than 600 kilometers away. Moving blocks of that size over such a distance without modern transport remains hard to explain. Once they arrived, raising them upright would have required careful planning and large teams. The logistics alone place these statues among the most ambitious projects of the ancient world. Nearby, the Ramesseum, the mortuary temple of Ramses II, once held one of the largest statues ever carved in Egypt. Fragments still on the site suggest the original figure stood over 17 meters tall and weighed close to 1,000 tons. Ancient builders transported the stone from distant quarries, shaped it into a detailed figure, and set it inside the temple complex. The work required advanced understanding of weight, balance, and large-scale organization. The broken remains today still conveyed the ambition of the original project. On the high altiplano of Bolivia, near Lake Titicaca, lies Tiwanaku. Many of its stone blocks weigh more than 100 tons and show sharp angles and nearly perfect flat surfaces. The site sits at nearly 4,000 meters above sea level. Moving such heavy material across rugged highland terrain would have been extremely difficult. There is still no clear consensus on how the stones were transported or finished with such accuracy using the tools of the period. The combination of altitude, weight, and precision continues to challenge explanation. Along Mexico's Gulf Coast, the Olmec created a series of colossal stone heads. Carved from basalt, each can weigh up to 50 tons and stand more than 2 meters high. The stone was brought from quarries as far as 100 kilometers away, without wheels or large pack animals moving these blocks through jungle, across rivers, and over uneven ground was a major logistical undertaking. Each head is uniquely carved, showing individual craftsmanship as well as careful planning. In central Afghanistan, the Buddhas of Bamiyan once ranked among the tallest statues in the world. The largest stood more than 50 meters high. Unlike freestanding monuments, they were cut directly from the living rock, requiring the removal of vast amounts of material. Workers operated at great heights with scaffolding and hand tools. The project would have taken years, if not decades. Later finishing details and coatings added further complexity. Their destruction in 2001 was a cultural loss. Yet the question of how they were originally created remains. In Indonesia, Borobudur rises as one of the largest Buddhist monuments ever built. Multiple terraces are covered with thousands of carved panels and statues arranged in a precise geometric plan. Thousands of stone blocks had to be cut, moved, and fitted to create the overall form. The scale, symmetry, and detail continue to impress researchers studying its construction. In Sri the rock fortress of Sigiriya sits atop a sheer column of stone nearly 200 meters high. Narrow stairways were cut into the rock face to reach the summit, where the remains of a palace, terraces, and water features can still be seen. Even today, the climb is demanding. Surrounding the base are formal gardens and sophisticated hydraulic systems, some still functional. Building a complex residence on such an isolated height required engineering skill that seems advanced for its time. In China, the Longyu Caves form a series of large underground chambers cut into solid rock. The walls are smooth, the pillars evenly spaced, and the surfaces carry consistent carved patterns. Creating the chambers would have meant removing millions of cubic meters of stone. No clear records explain who built them or for what purpose. Several caves share almost identical design, as if following a single plan. Tools, methods, and historical accounts remain missing, leaving the origin of these spaces unexplained. In the Saudi desert, the rock formation known as Al-Nazla appears cleanly split into two halves. The cut is remarkably straight and smooth, and the two sections rest on narrow, natural pedestals. The precision of the division looks more regular than most natural fractures, prompting ongoing debate about how it formed. At Naqshi Rustam in Iran, large tombs were cut high into a cliff face. Detailed facades surround the entrances, which sit well above ground level. Working at those heights would have required scaffolding and careful control. Evidence for the exact methods used is still limited. In India, the stepwell of Chand Bori descends more than 20 meters in a precise geometric pattern of thousands of steps. The symmetry is striking. Building such a consistent structure at depth demanded careful planning and execution. How the builders maintained that accuracy remains uncertain. Further afield, the ancient Hittite capital of Hattusa in modern Turkey was protected by extensive stone walls that followed difficult, uneven ground. Monumental gates, including the Lion Gate, still stand. Moving and fitting large blocks across such terrain would have been demanding. The city's layout of fortifications, tunnels, and organized zones points to deliberate planning on a large scale. In Mexico, the Maya city of Palenque is known for refined architecture and detailed reliefs. Inside the Temple of the Inscriptions, Hidden chambers and passages reveal complex internal design. Researchers continue to study how such precision was achieved with the tools of the period. In Ethiopia, a group of churches at Lalibela were carved downward into solid rock rather than built upward. The most famous Beit Georgis is shaped as a cross and cut entirely from a single mass of stone. The accuracy of the work is remarkable, and the methods used are still not fully understood. Also, in Ethiopia, the Stele Field at Ta contains large carved pillars, marked with swords and geometric symbols. The site appears to have been a burial ground, yet the culture that raised the stones left few other traces. Many of the symbols remain undeciphered nearby. The granite obelisks of Aksum rise more than 70 feet and weigh hundreds of tons. Each was carved from a single block and erected nearly 2,000 years ago. Transporting and raising stones of that size required significant engineering skill. In Cra, the hilltop fortress of Kalat ibn Ma and overlooks the ruins of Palmyra. It appears almost grown from the mountain itself. Building on such steep ground demanded major effort to move materials to the site. In western Tibet, the ruins of Soparang, once capital of the Guj kingdom, cling to steep clay cliffs. Fortresses, temples, and dwellings were cut into the mountainside in successive levels. The fragile terrain makes the scale of the settlement all the more surprising. In southern Spain, prehistoric dolmens at Antequera and nearby sites were built from massive stone slabs thousands of years ago. Some blocks weigh several tons and were arranged to form burial chambers. How early communities moved and positioned them without advanced tools is still debated. In central India, the Udayuri caves contain temples and shrines cut into rock cliffs more than 1,500 years ago. Elaborate sculptures remain well preserved. Each chamber had to be shaped carefully so as not to damage the surrounding stone. In Egypt, the temples of Abu Simbel were carved into a mountainside during the reign of Ramses. Two colossal statues more than 60 feet high guard the entrances. The temples were also aligned so that sunlight reaches the inner sanctuary on specific days of the year, an achievement that still impresses modern observers. In Turkey, the rock-cut tombs at Myra sit high on sheer cliff faces. Their facades imitate multi-story buildings, complete with columns and doorways. Working at those elevations with precision would have required substantial scaffolding. Yet little direct evidence of such systems has been found in the Yucatan. The Maya city of Uzmal is noted for its curved forms and finely fitted structures. The Pyramid of the Magician rises steeply, with rounded edges uncommon in most ancient architecture. The stones were cut and joined without metal tools. Yet, the craftsmanship points to sophisticated planning. In western India, the Ajanta caves form a network of temples and monasteries cut into a curved cliff more than 2,000 years ago. Massive pillars, detailed carvings, and large halls were created by removing rock rather than stacking it. Mistakes could not be corrected, so the work demanded exceptional planning and control. On the island of Java, Gunung Padang has drawn debate in recent years. Surface stone terraces sit atop what some researchers interpret as deeper, older layers. Claims that parts of the site could date back tens of thousands of years remain controversial, but if confirmed, they would push the timeline of complex construction much earlier than usually accepted. In Peru, the walls of Sacsayhuaman are famous for their size and precision. Blocks weighing more than 100 tons fit so tightly that a thin blade cannot pass between them. Each stone was shaped to lock with its neighbors in a complex interlocking pattern. How this was achieved without modern tools continues to challenge explanation. In China, the Hanging Temple clings to a cliff face hundreds of feet above the valley floor. Wooden beams driven into the rocks support the structure. Despite its apparent fragility, it has stood for more than 1,000 years. The placement of the supports and the distribution of weight show a practical understanding of balance, though the development of that knowledge is still unclear. In Israel, the fortress of Masada occupies a high plateau with steep cliffs on all sides. Walls, storage rooms, water systems, and palace buildings were constructed on the summit. Moving large quantities of stone and other materials up the mountain, before modern transport would have required major organization. The remains are still well preserved in the Pacific. The city of Nanmadel was built on a series of artificial islets linked by canals. Massive basalt columns formed the walls of its compounds. No local source for these stones has been identified, so they must have been brought across water. Moving blocks of that size without clear evidence of the method remains one of the Pacific's major archaeological puzzles. Finally, the Great Pyramid of Giza, roughly 2.3 million stone blocks, many weighing several tons and some internal granite beams reaching 80 tons, form a structure that remained the tallest on Earth for nearly 4,000 years. Its sides align closely with the cardinal directions, and the base is leveled to a high degree of accuracy. How the builders lifted and placed millions of heavy stones is still debated. Proposed solutions involving ramps, levers, and large workforces have never been fully demonstrated at this scale. After centuries of study, many of these monuments continue to resist complete explanation. They stand as durable evidence of what ancient societies could achieve with methods, tools, and knowledge that are still only partly understood. Whether the missing details have simply been lost or are still waiting to be recovered, the sites keep forcing us to re-examine what we think we know about the distant past. That ongoing uncertainty is part of what makes them so compelling.